You know, when I began speedrunning, I knew that to some degree I'd be pushing myself. However, what I didn't know is that speedrunning would lead me down a surprisingly beautiful journey of not just self-discovery, but change. This is what speedrunning has taught me. At this point, you'd probably not be too surprised to learn that this is a pretty personal story for me. In an interesting way, speedrunning to me represents something more than the sum of its parts. It represents a point in my life, a time of transitioning. A transitioning from a mindset of pessimistic nihilism to something more and, importantly, something better. Through the learned patience and endurance of practice, and practice, and practice, through the learned humility of sometimes failing despite those hours poured into that practice, and through learning to pace myself and to value improvement over time rather than just in the moment, I learned the self-respect of realizing that I can improve. I can become a better version of myself today than I was yesterday, and yet still become better once tomorrow rolls around. Overall, speedrunning has taught me to care. Throughout basically my entire life, especially as a child, I've always been praised for my patience. My ability to sit quietly and wait without question was apparently something to be praised for, at least when I was younger. But in my adult life, however, I've learned that I'm really not all that patient and probably never was. I think that I've always just been pretty good at entertaining myself up here, if that makes any sense. And the reality that I'm really not all that patient had never become more clear until I began learning Super Mario Sunshine 90%. In the 3 to 4 months it took me to learn the game, I often found myself getting frustrated that I couldn't just check in what I've learned and finally get to doing some runs already. Frustrated that this was something that wouldn't come after a few hours, hell, even a few days of practice. Before I could even think about consistently doing flashy movement in secret stages, consistently getting up onto the Shine Gate without a rocket nozzle, and consistently getting over that annoying hill in Bianco 4, I had to learn the fundamentals, like momentum spin jumps, wide turn wall kicks, and hover slides. Now, to some of you that may have sounded a bit like gibberish, which is okay, don't worry about it. The point is, I had to learn to walk before I could run, and that type of patience is something that didn't come naturally to me. That type of patience, long-term gratification as some call it, is something I had to learn. And to someone who had really only known short-term gratification, it was a really hard and frankly sometimes painful experience having to force the perspective of this will pay off in the long run, keep going. And the only way I was able to hammer that into my head was through the lens of practice. Seeing myself get marginally better day by day, realizing that I was improving, that my practice was indeed paying off over the long run, has instilled a type of confidence in myself that I never had experienced before. A type of confidence that gives me the drive to really put my mind to anything I want to try. Let me just say, it's no coincidence the general quality of my videos has gone up since I started speedrunning. I've learned that if I take things day by day, then improvement will be sure to follow. You know, they say that practice makes perfect. While the sentiment of that saying is true, practice does indeed naturally pave the way to success and improvement. I think that there's a bit of a trap in the saying. That is to say that there really is no such thing as perfect. While at first that may sound like some pseudo-intellectual gotcha comment you might see on Reddit or Twitter, there is something of substance here. To get straight to the point, it's easy to assume you've practiced enough, that you've reached perfect, or at least good enough. But reality has a funny way of forcing humility upon you in those moments. That's at least my experience anyways. And no other time showed me more to have humility to not fall victim to Dunning-Kruger than what happened on my 43rd speedrun attempt of Super Mario Sunshine 80%. Oh yeah, and apologies for the quality in these clips, this was from a while ago. Oh, come on, oh. Well, lost all my time. Why isn't this working? I can give up on this game. Finally. And what was the cause of this immense failure? I held the wrong direction on the control stick. Yeah, it's painful and saddening for me to watch to this day. But it really just goes to show you, or at least me anyways, that I can't just assume I have all the knowledge and skill I need to pull something off, even if I have practice. Practice only takes you so far without humility. It takes knowing that you will fail, that practice does not indeed make you perfect, to get back up and try again, to learn and better yourself for the next try. This is a lesson that speedrunning has forever etched into me, a lesson that often reaches into other parts of my life. Plus, as a bonus, going into your next run knowing that failure is not a be-all end-all, but instead a gateway to self-improvement, the prospect and reality of failure when it once again makes its presence painfully known is not just easier to take, but almost welcome in a weird sort of way. Of course, getting a new PB is more welcome, but I think my point still stands. Something that I've kind of touched on is it took me a pretty long time to learn Sunshine Any %, about 3 to 4 months to learn a 2-hour run. Now, I don't know what the baseline is. For all I know, 3 to 4 months could be an above average learning time for SMS Any %, but that would be missing the forest for the trees, my friends. The point here isn't about comparing myself to others, but instead about comparing what I did do to what I could have done, and how I could have done it better.
Oh yeah!
Of course, I'm not into beating myself up over missteps. I try my best not to be about that. The point here is to try and learn from my mistakes by analyzing them. After all, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. So, what did I learn? Well, put simply, I learned that if I'm passionate about something, it is not just important, but utterly critical that I pace myself, that I give myself time to breathe. So what was the mistake I learned this from? Well, as embarrassing as it is to say, I nearly burnt out from Sunshine speedrunning before I ever really began. In the beginning, I had spent so much time just practicing and learning, that once I got around to learning the threshold for when the run transitions from early game to mid game, which is Pianta to Pinna for those who are counting, the pace at which I was learning the run began to significantly slow down. Of course, I kept going. I still loved the game after all, but that would reach a fever pitch once I got around to learning Serena Beach and Noki Bay, which are both levels that are considered late game, again for those who are counting. To put it bluntly, I half-assed my training for these levels, which to this day you can still see the effects in my over half an hour improved run. My Noki 1 is frankly just embarrassing. I don't even want to put it on screen for you guys, but I think I gotta. If I just paced myself in those 3 to 4 months, I could have avoided the burnout I was beginning to feel. And if I avoided that burnout, I could have not only avoided a half-assed late game, but I could have avoided my nearly half-year break I took just 4 months into speedrunning Sunshine. Yeah, just 4 months in, I was ready to take a break. That really just says it all in my opinion. The lesson here, once again, makes itself known. Learning to value improvement over time and learning to respect that value was the metaphorical key to my metaphorical locked chest of potential. I'm still working on opening that chest, of course, but at least I have the key. So if there's one thing I'd like you guys to take away from this whole video, it's that you can use seemingly mundane opportunities to not just learn about yourself, but to better yourself. I may not be the best at Super Mario Sunshine, I'm really not even close to be honest. Sunshine and speedrunning may also not be the most important of things in life, but that doesn't mean I can't get anything out of it. And it certainly doesn't mean that I can't or shouldn't take the opportunity to make it into something more. To take the opportunity to recognize my strengths and commend myself for them, and to recognize my weaknesses and improve upon them. Yeah, sure, like I said, Sunshine and speedrunning ultimately might not matter, but maybe objectively nothing matters. We're just tiny specks on a larger, but still ultimately tiny speck of rock we like to call Earth. But that doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't make things matter. You can make your own meaning in this life. So go on ahead and take the opportunity.